Hello friends, we are back. Today is 27 December. So we will start our Hindu newspaper reading. So let's start from first page. Our main heading is deeply regret loss of lives in Nagaland Sage Army. Be alert and disciplined to fight pandemic. Sage PM on Man Ki Baat. Chinese ambassador QIH visit to Jaffna sparks concern. Rahul's century helps India take opening day's honor. Okay. Let's look at the site news in brief. Government to impose night curfew in Delhi with the capital reporting 290 new COVID-19 cases on Sunday. Sources in the Chief Minister's office said night curfew between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. will be announced on Monday. The city also recorded one death. The positivity rate rose to 0.55% after 52,947 tests were conducted in the last 24 hours. That means government to impose night curfew in Delhi from Monday. That means today, from today. Okay, second, six killed in explosion at a noodle factory in Bihar. At least six persons were killed and seven others injured on Sunday after a boiler at a noodle factory exploded in Bihar's Muzaffarpur district. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar expressed grief over the incident and announced a compensation of 4 lakh rupees each to the families of the victims. The government has also sent a team from Patna to probe the incident. Okay, so our main topic first starting it. Two more booked for Haridwar hate meet as we already discussed in yesterday reading. There was a one topic regarding hate speech at Haridwar. So this is another speech, and we will read what is the progress on this news. Investigation is on. Police says no arrest made so far. Whether UAPA can be invoked or not, each part of the investigation it will depend on the facts of the case, and we are getting it examined legally. The in detail we are reading the Uttarakhand police on Sunday added the names of the two more persons in the first information report FIR pertaining to hate speeches at a religious event in Haridwar organized between December 17 and 19, where calls were made for genocide and violence against Muslims. Director General of Police Uttarakhand Ashok Kumar told the Hindu that many persons had been examined and the investigation was on. No arrests had been made so far, Mr. Kumar said, adding the provisions of the Anti-Terror Law Unlawful Activities Prevention Act (UAPA) Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Okay, to the case was being legally examined whether UAPA can be invoked or not. Each part of the investigation it will depend on the facts of the case, and we are getting it examined legally. He said. The Haridwar police have registered a case under Section 153 of the Indian Penal Code promoting enmity between different groups on grounds of religion and telling a maximum punishment of 5 years. Our investigation is on from both points of view. If more number of accused are to be added to the investigation, and if any other section is applicable, Mr. Kumar said the FIR registered on December 23 had only named Wasim Rizvi alias Jitendra Narayan Tyagi as an accused. It was based on a complaint filed by the local resident who had many mentioned Wasim Rizvi and others. Rizvi, a former chairman of the Uttar Pradesh Sia Waqf had recently converted to Hinduism. Akhada had on Sunday, the police added the names of the Annapurna Mom alias Pooja Sakun Pandey, the Mahamandeleswar of the Niranjani Akhada and General Secretary of the Hindu Mahasabha, and Dharamdas Maharaj, a resident of Bihar, to the FIR. In one of the video clips, Annapurna Ma is even telling the gathering that Hindus should leave aside books and pick up arms against Muslims. And Dharamdas Maharaj said that there were 500 Pakistans in India where Hindu writers could not be performed and called for killing of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Superintendent of Police Haridwar City Seeker Suel said the police were taking action based on the investigation and as evidence emerged, asked if two accused had been called for questioning. Mr. Soel said it was part of it is a part of it is a part of investigation cannot reveal more. Nursing Anand, who organized the event, he called upon Hindu youth to become Pravakaran or Bhindranwale and provoked Hindus to pick up arms against the Muslims. Mr. Narsingh Anand had several FIRs against him in Uttar Pradesh and Delhi earlier this year. His comments about Prophet Muhammad led the Delhi police to file an FIR. So we have seen the on progress news on Haridwar hate speech. So now move to next point. But heading is Chris statue vandalized in Ambala. CCTV footage shows two men entering British era church early on Sunday. Okay, this is news from after uh, Christmas Day. So let's deep dive into this news. The statue of Jesus Christ that was vandalized at the Holy Redeemer Church in Ambala, Haryana on Sunday. A life-size status of Jesus Christ at the British era Holy Redeemer Church in the cantonment area of Ambala in Haryana was vandalized, and the lighting on the church premises damaged by two unidentified men in the early hours of Sunday. The first information report has been lodged on charges of trespass and defiling a place of worship. Across the state, right-wing group had attempted to disrupt the Christmas celebrations in Gurugram. Celebrations at a private school were disrupted on Friday evening. However, former police complaints have not been lodged. Superintendent of Police Jasandeep Singh Randhawa said the police were investigating the Ambala incident from all the angles, even personal rivalry. He said the pictures of the suspects in the closed circuit television footage were being developed and secret sources were activated to gather leads in the attack. We are hopeful of a breakthrough soon, Mr. Singh said. Father Patras Mundu, Paris priest, Holy Redeemer Church told the Hindu over the phone from Ambala that the attack took place between half past midnight and 1:40 a.m. with two men on the two-wheeler entering the church by jumping over the main gate and damaging the lighting and the decoration. Before leaving, they heard bricks and broke the glass case at the entrance to the church, which housed the statue of Jesus Christ. He said CCTV footage showed that two vandalized the place and the statue purposely, while one of them was pulling down the lighting and other was recording it on his phone. They were also in contact with someone over the phone, as if taking in first instructions, said Mr. Mundu, who is the complainant in the case. The face of one of the suspects is clearly visible and should not be difficult for the police to trace him. Okay, now move to third point. Youth object to Hindus celebrating Christmas. A group of youth claiming to be members of the Bajrang Dal stopped Hindus from celebrating Christmas uh, in Silchar of southern Assam on Saturday. They manhandled a few non-Christian revelers in a Presbyterian church near the Catcher District Police Headquarters. Local police said in a video uploaded on social media, one youth claiming to be a leader of the Bajrang Dal's local unit said, "We have nothing against Christmas. Who have every right to celebrate Christmas. Our issue is with the Hindus who went against their dharma to sing Merry Christmas instead of observing Tulsi Divas." In the video, Bajrang Dal activists donning saffron scarves and chanting Jai Sri Ram also said they locked the church after 11 p.m. as there were too many people violating the COVID-19 protocols beyond the time allowed by the administration. Great. Now our fourth news is executive soldier are trying to disrespect court orders. CGI in detail. Chief Justice of India N.V. Ramna who is Chief Justice of India, N.V. Ramana, said here on Sunday that the executive showed a growing tendency to disregard and even disrespect court orders, though it was supposed to assist and cooperate with the judicial for the rule of law to prevail in the nation. Chief Justice Ramana was delivering the fifth Love Venkateswarlu, an endowment lecture on Indian judiciary future challenges, highlighting the challenges before the judiciary. He said a non-cooperative executive was one of the concerns. Courts do not have the power of the pursue or the sword. Court orders are only good when they get executed, unless the executive and legislature making sincere efforts to fill the judicial vacancies, appoint prosecutors, strengthen infrastructure, and make laws with a clear foresight and stakeholders analysis. The judiciary cannot be held responsible alone, he said. On appointment of judges, the CJI said it is nowadays fashionable to reiterate phrases such as judges are themselves appointing judges. I consider this a widely propagated myth. The fact is, the judiciary is merely one of the many players involved in the process. Many authorities are involved, including the Union, Law Ministry, state governments, governors, High Court, Collegium, Collegia, Intelligence Bureau, and lastly the topmost executive is that. Okay, our fifth news is will not bring back from lodge. Toma, Union Agriculture Minister, who is Union Agriculture Minister of India, Narendra Singh Tomar. Okay, Union Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar on Sunday clarified that the government was not planning to bring back the farm laws that were recently repeated, adding that the Congress was spreading rumors to cover up its own failure. On Friday, Mr. Thomas said the government took a step back on the farms law for some reason but would go forward again. This led the Congress to allege that the center was planning to bring back the contentious laws, which were repeated after over years of protest by farmers. Mr. Thomas tweeted on Sunday that the center had no such plan. He said Prime Minister Modi had decided to withdraw the laws to keep the honor of the farmers. People from the Toda community participating in a rito to welcome the new year at the Ooty in increased districts of Tamil Nadu on Sunday. Okay. For six news agent. Anti-apartheid icon Desmond Tutu dies. South African anti-apartheid icon and Nobel Peace Prize laureate Archbishop Desmond Tutu died on Sunday, aged 90, calling him a guiding light for countless people globally. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his tribute, said his emphasis on humanity, dignity, and equality will be forever remembered. I am deeply saddened by his demise and extend my heartfelt condolences to all his admirers. May his soul rest in peace. And our seventh news is Nagaland panel to look into AFSPA withdrawal. It will be led by Home Ministry officials, include top officers of Assam Rifles CRPF. In detail, weeks after a botched ambush by an allied armed forces unit killed 13 civilians at Oting in the Mon districts of Nagaland, a recent high-level meeting in New Delhi decided to continue a committee to study the possibility of withdrawing the Armed Forces Special Powers Act AFSPA Armed Forces Special Power Act from the state. The act gives immunity to armed forces when they use force in a notified area. The committee will be headed by the Additional Secretary Northeast in the Union Home Secretary and will include Nagaland's Chief Secretary and the Director General of Police. The other members will be the Inspector General of Assam Rifles North and a representative of the Central Reserve Force CRPF and official statement issued by Nagaland Chief Minister Nephew Rao, Deputy Chief Minister Sabai Patton, and former Chief Minister T.R. Gilliang said on Sunday the decision to from the panel was made during Home Minister Amit Shah's meeting with Mr. Rio, Mr. Patton, and Mr. Gilliang, along with Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma in New Delhi on December 23. Report within 45 days. The statement said the committee would submit its report within 45 days. The withdrawal of the disturbed area notification and the AFSPA from Nagaland will be based on the recommendations of the committee. It added a court of inquiry will initiate disciplinary proceedings against the army unit and army personnel who are directly involved in the voting incident. The identified persons who will face the inquiry will be placed under suspension with immediate effect. The statement said it said the state government would provide jobs to the next of kin of the deceased to and to initiate this process. The deputy commissioner and the superintendent of police of Mount District would carry out necessary procedures in consultations with the village councils concerned. Government government jobs will be given on compassionate grounds on the basis of eligibility. The Nagaland delegations requested Mr. Shah to replace the Assam Rifles unit in Monday with immediate effect. The statement said the Nagaland government launched Mr. Shah for taking the matter with utmost seriousness and the government of India for taking the required step to ensure justice. The state government appealed to all sections to remain calm and maintain peace. The democratic and peaceful nature of the civil society groups, a tribal apex community based body and mass based organization in our collective quest for justice and truth has been well received and has created a positive image of the Naga people to the rest of the global community, the statement said. So our first page is covered. Now we are moving to our fifth page, sixth page for editorial. Okay, we will cover this in detail. Okay, first man adding a geo more and for more boosters for the aged and vaccines for children can help India combat the virus. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi has already said on Friday or Saturday regarding regarding vaccine booster for aged 15 to 18 age group or over the 16 age group or health workers. So there is another article. So we will deep dive into this article and let's start. Boosters for the aged and vaccines for children can help India combat the virus. Okay. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will, unlike a Santa Claus who enters homes without warning and leaves gifts, suddenly announced on Christmas night that precaution or third dosage of vaccine would be available from January 10 for healthcare frontline workers and those over 60 with comorbidities on their direct doctor's advice. Vaccines would also be available for those in the 15 to 18 age group from January 3. Since the emergence of Omicron, there has been a clamor among senior citizens for booster shots. The announcement, however, was nearly simultaneous with another significant development of Covaxin being approved by the Drug Controller General of India (DGCI), Drug Controller General of India, for use in those over 12 years. This would make it the second vaccine after jet by COVID, which has still to hit the market to be approved in the 12 plus years category. There are close to 44 crore Indians below 18, a third of whom are 12 to 17 years old. The experience with Covaxin has shown that despite approval on the same day as Covishield this January, it has been extremely slow to scale up with the two-dose vaccine only accounting for about 10% of the nearly 141 crore doses that have been administered so far, given that Jacobity output is unknown. It is unclear if it will be practically available in January 2022. However, the Prime Minister's impromptu announcement is also puzzling. For more than a month, a National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization in Indian Committee has reportedly been weighing the pros and cons of approving vaccines for children and senior citizens. Just a day before Mr. Modi's announcement, the ICMR had said that this matter was still under debate in India's medico bureaucratic hierarchy. These included key questions on the extent to which antibodies labeled waxed or went following immunization. whether booster dosage of same vaccine would be effective, and whether Covaxin and Covishield were differentially protective against Omicron. On the later part, it was said that the ICMR awaited data at the Omicron variant had not been artificially ground in its lab. These questions have public health consequences. While 90% of adults have got one dose and over 70% Indians have been exposed to the virus in the past 20 months, there are 40% adults who have not got a second shot. the demand for sort the demand for the first sorts is no satisfying, and with the private hospitals claiming excess stocks, it is very likely that the economic elite of India and their assistants will mop up available stocks. And also unusual is that the technical clearance is for vaccination for those 12 and above, but Mr. Modi announced these will be for for those above 15 years. It is not clear if there is evidence that this group of sub adults is more vulnerable. India's health administration should be transparent with the data at hand and not let itself be in thrall of political calculations. Good. Second is act of faith. Karnataka should not pursue regressive legislation in the name of curbing conversion. It is unfortunate that Karnataka has joined the band of states that want to enact a regressive laws aimed at policing the private lives and beliefs of citizens in the name of preventing unlawful conversations. After getting the approval of the Assembly, the Karnataka Protection of Right to Freedom of Religion Bill 2021 has not been tabled in the Legislative Council, presumably in anticipation of the ruling party's strength in the upper house turning favorable later. While several states have lodged that criminalize conversion on the basis of force, fraud, or inducement. Allurement, the trend has been to include marriage as an illegal means of conversion. Karnataka has now made a promise of marriage a means of unlawful conversion. It is needless to say that the idea of presuming that a conversion has or is about to take place alongside an interfaith marriage is patently unconstitutional, as it interferes with the right to privacy, marital freedom, and freedom of belief. What makes the Karnataka anti-conversion law quite sinister is that its introduction in the legislature is running in parallel with a series of targeted attacks on churches, Christian prayers, and Christmas celebrations. Belligerent right-wing groups are out in the field with what happens to be an agenda to create an impression that religious conversion is rampant and that urgent legislative action is necessary to stop the trend. Anti-conversion laws have been upheld by the courts in the past on the ground that conversion by allurement forces of fraud poses a threat to public order and should be curbed. However, the only threat to public order seems to arise from rampaging groups out to create social discord. It is true that the Supreme Court has held that the right to propagate religion does not include a right to convert, and that the state can frame laws to prevent conversion through fraud, force, or inducement. However, in a pushback against using this legal position to enact laws to preclude interfaith marriages and render the parties vulnerable to prosecution, the Gujarat High Court has strict provisions of state law has, that made conversion by marriage an offense, pointing out that it placed in jeopardy all marriage of those between two different faiths. Regarding the prior notice requirement in the Karnataka bill for individuals intending to convert, it must be noted that the Himachal Pradesh High Court has struck down a similar provision in 2012, holding that asking someone to disclose plans to change one's faith violates the right to one's religious beliefs, private and secret. Anti-conversion laws should target only forcible or fraudulent conversion and not be open to grave misuse. There is no place for provisions that allow family members and associates to complain to the place to indirect lawful marriages. Such laws will plunge society into regressive media village. our third heading is the elderly are assets, not dependents. Good. We will dive into detail. Obviously, this is very useful news. You will get some knowledge after reading this. Okay. Proof of a truly developed country lies in the way it not only nurtures its young but also cares for its elders equally. In the past few decades, concerns about population explosion have given way to joy about a demographic dividend. The latter is expected to give a push to economic growth due to the lower dependency ratio, which results from having a larger proportion of the population in the working age group. The Asian tigers countries such as South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, as also China, have exemplified the benefits. TFHS 5 data, the larger youth population is also expected to give an impetus to innovation and entrepreneurship. Not surprisingly, then the young are in focus with many programs to facilitate their education, entrepreneurship, sports, training, etc. But also well-being. This is it must be not just from the economist viewpoint, but especially from the perspective of health. Poor health, like inadequate education, could well nullify the demographic advantage. Of concern is data from the latest National Family Health Survey (NFHS), National Family Health Survey 5, which indicates that while much progress has been made, the metrics for infant and child health and continue to be dismal, with some being even lower than what they were 5 years ago. Yet, even as we pay attention to the young, there is both need and benefit in also looking at the other end of the spectrum. Life expectancy in India has risen from 50, 1970 to 75 to 70 years, 2014 to 80. As a result, the number of elders, those over 60 years, is already 137 million and expected to increase by 40% to 195 million in 2031 and 300 million by 2050. While one perspective would look at them as dependents and therefore a drag on the economy, a rather different view would look at them as a potential asset, a massive resource of experienced knowledgeable people. Converting them from dependents to productive members of society depends on two primary factors: their wealth and their capabilities. Changing healthcare needs. Generally, the elderly population needs more medical attention of a diverse range, as per the first ever longitudinal aging study in India, LASI, longitudinal aging study India. Longitudinal aging study in India, LASI. 11% of the elderly suffer from at least one form of impairment: locomotor, mental, visual, and hearing. It is estimated that 58 lakh Indians die from non-communicable disease, NCD, non-communicable disease. In India, annually the cardiovascular disease (CVD) prevalence is estimated to be 34% among 60 to 70 years old, rising to 37% in those above 75 years. And we move to a demographic where the growth rate of elders far exceeds that of the young. Perhaps the biggest challenge that the country would face is to provide a range of quality, affordable, and accessible health and care services to the elderly. They require an array of specialized medical services at home, including tele or home consultation, physiotherapy and rehabilitation services, mental health counseling and treatment, as well as pharmaceutical and diagnostic services. These needs are particularly evident now, with elders being advised to stay indoor as a precaution against the novel coronavirus epidemic. As per the 2016 Healthcare Access and Quality Index, in HAQ Healthcare Access and Quality Index, India improved its HAQ score from 24.7 in 1990 to 41.2 in 2016. However, we still are significantly below the global range of 54 points, ranking at the spot of 145 out of 195 countries. The low HQ version Even further, in smaller cities and rural areas where basic quality healthcare services are very inadequate, factors such as familial neglect, low education levels, socio-cultural beliefs, and stigma, low trust on institutionalized healthcare services, and affordability ex- ex- exacerbate the situation for the elders exacerbate the situation for the elders. Inequity in healthcare access compounds the problems for the elderly who are already physically, financially, and at times psychologically restricted in understanding, responding to, and seeking medical care for various ailments. Consequently, most of them live their years in neglect. Inadequate schemes. Healthcare of the elderly has sadly been greatly neglected. An overwhelming proportion of the elders are from the lower socioeconomic strata, including many who are destitute. They are unable to afford the cost of healthcare and slip into ever, ever poorer health. The vicious cycle of poor health and unaffordable health costs is further accelerated by their inability to earn a livelihood. As a result, not only are they economically unproductive but are dependent on support from family or others. This and poor physical health adds to their mental and emotional problem. The government does have schemes that cover the elderly and seeks to take care of these issues, but they are completely inadequate. Despite Ayushman Bharat, the government's health insurance scheme for the deprived and private health insurance, the Niti Aayog report indicates that 400 million Indians do not have any financial cover for their health expenses. One can be sure that a very large number of elders are among the uncovered, but the center and states have pension schemes for the elders, but these provide but a pittance as low as your 350 rupee to 400 rupee a month in some states. Even this is non-universal. A 2007 law requires states to ensure earmarked facilities for elders in every district hospital headed by a doctor with experience in geriatric care. Yet a status report filed by the government in the Supreme Court of India in 2019 stated that 16 states and union territories of 35 did not have a single ward or bed or bed dedicated to elders. Opportunities in challenges. Given the range of diverse challenges, can India take care of its aging population? Thus the success of the COVID-19 vaccination strategy given hope. A seniors first approach had led to over 73% of elderly population receiving at least one dose and around 40% being doubly vaccinated by October 2021. Considering the demographic trends, India should reimagine its entire healthcare policy for the next few decades with an elderly prioritized approach. As senior citizens required the most diverse array of healthcare services, the creation of adequate services for them will benefit all other age groups. Apart from legislating pro elderly healthcare and insurance policy, India needs to aggressively take certain measures while finding opportunity amidst this challenge. India needs to rapidly increase its public healthcare spending and invest heavily in the creation of well equipped and staffed medical care facilities and home health and home healthcare and home healthcare and rehabilitation services. Presently, India has a major deficit in infrastructure and skilled medical care resources with 1.3 hospital beds, 0.65 physicians, and 1.3 nurses for every 1,000 people over the next decade. We have the potential to add more than 3 million beds, 1.54 million doctors, and 2.4 million nurses. We need to accelerate implementation of programs such as the National Program for Healthcare of the Elderly NPHCE, the Ayushman Bharat and PMJ Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana ecosystem needs to be further expanded and similar special healthcare coverage schemes and services needs to be created for senior citizens from the lower economic strata. The National Digital Health Mission has tremendous potential to expand medical consultations into the interiors of the country. However, this requires a digital literacy campaign for senior citizens. These essential steps will help to convert elders into a massive resources for socio-cultural and economic development, giving an altogether different perspective to demographic evidence. After all, the proof of a truly involved and caring nation lies in the way it not only nurtures its young but also how it cares for its aging population. Great. Okay, our fourth topic of an editorial, a chance to tap India's high equality in Myanmar. Though there are challenges, the momentum gained from the Indian Foreign Secretary's recent visit must not be lost. In detail, Rajiv Bhatia. Okay. The short visit to Myanmar, December 22-23 by India's Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Sringla had a clearly as to mandate to deepen cooperation with an important neighbor. His mission succeeded to a large extent, but challenges remain. The Indian delegation took a special flight to Naypyidaw and Yangon. It certainly eased logistics for the officer, but was fully utilized as it also carried 1 million Indian-made vaccine doses as a gift to the people of Myanmar. Regional dimensions. Mr. Sringla followed India's calibrated middle path passion, not the West reflexive policy of condemnation, threats, and sanction against the military regime, but a position reflective of regional realities. It is not easy task. Since the military coup on February 1, 2021, the international community has stayed divided on how to address the derailment of Myanmar's transition to democracy. For a decade, the country's hybrid democracy based on power sharing between the military and elected representatives ran well, and but an overwhelming electoral victory of the National League for Democracy (NLD) led by Daw Aung San Suu Kyi in no in November 2020, unnerved the military leadership. It apprehended that, armed with a new mandate, the NLD would move first fast to clip the army's wings. The Tatmada Myanmar's military moves faster, seizing power in violation of the constitution and putting down the opposition with an iron hand. The results have been disastrous for democracy, economy, and the people's well-being, especially as the political crisis coincided with the COVID-19 ravaging the Golden Land. Global dismay was evident in the western sections, but others, such as Russia, saw the opportunity to strengthen ties with the new rulers. China regretted the loss of Dao Suiki as an valuable ally, but took urgent steps to stabilize and expand cooperation with the military regime. The ASEAN Association of Southern Asian Nation first showed creativity through its five-point consensus formula, but later its unity stood damaged once Myanmar top leader Senior General Min Aung Hlaing picture refused to cooperate in the formula's implementation. In this highly polarized and complex situation, Mr. Singla has succeeded in holding substantive discussion with the top state administrative council leadership, political parties, including the NLT in Nefatio, as well as Senior General Ming Aung Hyerlang and the representative of civil society in Young India's position as conveyed to Myanmar is similar to and supportive of ASEAN release of political prisoners, resolution of issues through dialogue, cessation of all violence and the full cooperation with ASEAN. In recent years, India has assisted Myanmar through its capacity building programs for strengthening the transition to democracy. This assistance remains available, but it is not an offer of mediation or by India in the military and energy conflict. This burden will have to be borne by ASEAN. That India's position carries confidence is reflected in an unusual interactive meeting Mr. Sringla held with a select group of Myanmar-based foreign ambassadors. Bilateral concerns, Myanmar's military is responding as it can. India's principal concerns pertaining to border security and stability in its neighborhood were clearly conveyed, especially the noticeable escalation of activities of anti-Indian insurance groups by handing over 5 cartridges of Manipur People's Liberation Army to India authorities before the Singla visit. The military government demonstrated its desire for cooperation. It also renewed the previous pledge that its nation territory would not be allowed to be used for any activity inimical to India. The second issue, the outcome of Myanmar's instability, is that the refugees, several thousands of Myanmar's people have sought shelter in Mizoram. This will only be reversed by a political settlement in Myanmar through dialogue. This issue too was taken up rigorously despite the understandable reiteration letter of non-position in the regime's formal take on discussion last week. Economic cooperation has always been a major agenda item in all bilateral discussions with Myanmar. This visit was no exception, with the usual emphasis on people-centric socio-economic development projects. Central to this is India's long-delayed commitment to expeditious implementation of mega initiatives such as the trilateral highway and Kaladan projects. Unfortunately, no revised deadlines were announced. These projects continue uh, to be Agile's heel of the relationship. Protocol departure. East India continue to have high equity in Myanmar, which it must not carefully leverage. It is reflected in the special allegation made by Senior General Min Aung Hyong, who is chairman of the SAC and Prime Minister, to receive Mr. Sringla and to hold direct discussions in Yong. This is unusual. The Myanmar establishment is highly protocol conscious by innings as ambassador in Yong. So, 3 visits by the Indian Foreign Secretary to different office holders, but they were noticeable by the regime's highest dignitary. The protocol departure for Mr. Singla revealed current political realities, which should be carefully factored in by those who wrongly argued that China is the only friend Myanmar has. Also, though the request for the Indian Foreign Secretary's call on Daisuke was not acceded to as was expected, it should be underlined that New Delhi made the request. There are other ways to pursue the matter, as India has done in the past. A quiet approach then resulted in a rare call by this writer on Dao Suiki in January 2003 when she was still under house arrest. Projecting the request this time around may yet produce results. Back home, the steps to take both the government and the opposition in Myanmar seems to understand India's super approach. India can leverage the gains of this visit and to keep up the momentum by inviting Myanmar's foreign minister in an in at an in a, at an appropriate time, as well as other important stakeholders such as leaders of political parties, civil society, and they think tanks to India for deliberations with their counterparts here. The single goal should be to put Myanmar back on the path of becoming a stable, democratic, and federal union. Okay, about fifth news, letters to the editor. Striking fear. It is indeed unfortunate to find an atmosphere of fear being generated following conclave of fanatics in Haridwar that has fanned the flames of hatred and violence until or unless there is strong political willpower to arrest this menace. The force of law too will turn out to be an exercise in formality and futility. The silence of those at the helm of affairs of the nation creates a perception of their not to go ahead with their sinister designs. In this, the way to celebrate the 75th year of the nation independence is this the India where the mind is without fear and the head is held high that Rabindranath Tagore dreamed of. The army call for genocide against the minority speaks volumes about what we may become as a society. Have we normalized hate speech against the minorities? These have also been the incidents in Punjab, two different states and different crimes. The only thing common is that both states are going to the polls soon, and no political party wants to offend any community. Hence, the blind eye to blatant hate. The inflammatory and objectionable speeches bear some resemblance to a hate week in George Orwell's 1984. The thought police and Big Brother are working to render their tacit support to make the salvation of the Indians edition of Hate Week faithful of late. The politics of hatred has trumped over the politics of dissent, ideology, and noble region. The silence of the Prime Minister and that of the BJP leadership is intriguing. Any majority minority community divide will do incalculable and untold harm to the very idea of India. Elections will come and go. A display of resolute statesmanship is the need of the hour. Not a week passes without newspaper reporting at least one case of hate speech or targeted harassment of the minorities. What makes it worse is the apparent normalization of such incidents. India's secular character is being torn to shreds by communal elements of different hues. Any more soft peddling in the face of deliberate efforts to disrupt communal harmony in India could lead to a conflagration which could cost the country and its people dearly. To my knowledge, such hate speech and open calls for genocide are a first for Haridwar. In peace-loving Uttarakhand, as a Muslim from Haridwar, I have never felt so unsafe, helpless, and alienated, and as I do today. At this critical juncture, I would urge my fellow citizens to help Indian Muslims to restore their faith in brotherhood and communal harmony. They should come out to raise their voice against such hate mongers of the field. Well played, Harbhajan Singh. He played cricket with the fierce determination, grit, and commitment. One wishes him success in his future endeavors. So our editorial part is finished. Iran nuclear talks reverberate in the Gulf. The Gulf Cooperation Council interest directly impinge on the outcome of the discussion. Prevention is better than cure. There are several company regions for extending outpatient healthcare coverage. A question of university and autonomy. The controversy over university appointments highlights key issues plugging higher education in a tearing hurry. A bill to raise minimum age of marriage. Already we have discussed yesterday. All India Athletic Tournament. OK Center will grant statute for Pondicherry ACM. He calls upon media person to stick to a truthful reporting. Two more books for Haridwar hate meet. OK. BSF seizes heroin worth 200 crore rupees near Pak border. Deeply regrets loss of lives in Nagaland Siege Army. Probe into incident progressing. Statue of Grace vandalized in Ambala. Saal lied to Parliament on Naga killings. Congress party demands his resignation. Six killed in boiler blast at noodle factory in Bihar, already discussed. Seven were injured in the explosion on Sunday morning. Rajnath Village Foundation show for DRDO Center. Okay, where is he laid the foundation stone organization in Lucknow? Okay, Rajnath Village Foundation for DRDO Center. CY books a textile firm for bank fraud. Youth objects to Hindu Salvatic Kisma executive was shows a trend to disrespect court orders. So they see Jagran Munch calls for ban on crypto trading. Okay. Parents of Kathua victim anguished by bail order. UNLF reveal arrested in Manipur. Arms recovered. India hands over food and defense equipment to Mozambique. The African nation has been fighting terrorism in its northern region. Okay, Sasej BJP will take whole society forward in UP rally. He turns SP and BSP casteist and dynastic. Okay, BJP sets up panel on Brahmin vote in UP. Assessments have shown that the community has certain grievances against the party. Okay, role of Ajay Misra. Uneasy truce in Uttarakhand BJP Minister Harak Rawat, who had wanted to quit party, persuaded to stay. MP decided not to hold Panchayat poll. Sidhu targets Chennai government again. War of words continue over Parliament session. Union Minister Prahlad Joshi tells Jai Ram Ramesh that opposition choose disruption over debate. Okay, Bhushan to brief EC on COVID-19 situation. Poll panel may seek inputs on protocol. IS militant killed in Anantnag operation. Two policemen were injured. Can community politics influence goons? BJP looking at Hindu bloc, but not all convinced. Okay. Spike in Maharashtra, corrupts in Delhi, 6,987 new COVID-19 cases recorded in India, taking the quote of active cases to 76,766. Be alert and disciplined to fight pandemic, says PM Modi. Our collective strength will defeat the virus, says Modi. Our experience of the past 2 years is that our own effort as citizen is very important to defeat this pandemic. It is our collective strength which will defeat Corona. We have to enter 2022 with this sense of responsibility. Okay, bids of 47.58 lakh rupee invited for floral art. Malik blames NCB for actor's death. Okay, 35% population yet to get second dose. Surjewala accusing Modi government of failure. Anti-dumping duty on five Chinese goods. This is yesterday news. The message of the manager. Tutu, who fought for a Rainbow Nation, died at 90. A tireless activist, the Archbishop won the Nobel Prize in 1984 for combating white minority rule in South Africa. Died at 90. That means died at 90. Taliban regimes imposes more curbs on women, bans long trips without male relatives. Chinese ambassador QI which to Jaffna sparks concern in Sri Lanka. 28 migrants found dead on Libyan coast. Israel plans to double settlement in Golan. Sri Lanka to sign Trinco deal with India soon. We are close to finalizing the terms of the oil tank from project, says Minister. MoneyWise log on to GSEX with RBI's retail director. GSEX could suit investors who prioritize safety and assured returns over attributes such as liquidity and taxes. And the platform charged no fees for accounting, opening, and maintenance or transaction. GSEX. Okay, but GSEX can have the following usage for retail investors. Understood. When a service turns disservice, don't be taken in by cold callers offering you benefit from your insurance company. You can be in for nasty surprises. Rao's unbeaten turn powers India to a strong position on day one. Plan to be expected the wicket to help us more, says Nagadi. Australia has England on the mat. Arora has Himachal clinch medal title. Lot of words behind this win. Rishi scores 136 numbers as a team wins via VJT method. Karthik's century in vain for Tamil Nadu. Okay, Blaster Jamshedpur all square city on the rampage. GG for Arsenal and Tottenham. Delhi Gujarat in thrilling ties. Arthak Raina Trump. Sports new done for Indian hockey due to men's bronze medal and women's fourth place at Tokyo Games. Watch my stride may score and cure. You may gets the better of Pooja. Stunning force wins the I League winning start for Gurukulam. Bounce to Dumby takes on struggling face. Education plus. Okay. Find your path, teacher. Teach thyself. Text and context. So those are text and context, big moves in big tech. So we have covered almost entire Hindi newspaper with the article editorial. Okay, so I think you will learn something and please listen very carefully and your listening skills will be improved day by day. So follow the same strategy that what I am following. Okay, so we will meet on 28th December. Thank you for watching this video. Please like this video and share this channel as much as possible. Thank you, and please subscribe this channel also. Thank you.